Throughout time, people across the world told each other tales of how they came to be, of heroes and monsters, romance and tragedy, death and rebirth. Mythology helped shape the ancient world, explaining the unexplainable. This is Mythology Unleashed. Picture, if you will, the sun sets at the end of a day. Night falls and a full moon rises, dousing the dark earth with silver light. A cry of pain echoes throughout the night. A poor soul is changing into something terrible. Their bones break and reshape. Coarse fur grows and covers their flesh. Razor-sharp claws sprout from the fingertips. Their teeth sharpen to points. Their face turns beastly. Once the horrific transformation is complete, the creature emits a howl unlike any other that makes the blood run cold. This is the werewolf. A staple of horror and dark fantasy stories, the werewolf is an impressive monster. Great size, overwhelming strength and speed, boundless stamina, sharp senses, even sharper claws and teeth, an appetite for man and beast alike, and immunity to most physical attacks make for a truly fearsome threat. There are a number of ways to become a werewolf, such as being cursed by a sorcerer or shaman, wearing enchanted pelts or clothing, drinking a potion or rubbing a magic ointment on the skin, drinking water from a wolf's paw print, sleeping under a full moon, having werewolf parents, and most commonly, being bitten by one and surviving. Once a werewolf, the mortal is forever cursed to wander the world, immune to age and disease, and committing acts of brutality on all that they encounter. A person's only salvation from the wrath of the beast is the wolfsbane plant to ward it away, and a silver bullet to end the monster's life. Upon its death, the werewolf will revert back to its human form. Werewolves are among the most popular monsters of legend, but where did the myths of werewolves begin? Since perhaps the late Stone Age, tales of human beings transforming into animals have been found all over the world, from Europe and Asia to Africa and the Americas. In the northern hemisphere, wolves are among the top predators of their ecosystems, naturally gifted with great strength, endurance, and senses, as well as cultural associations with gluttony, greed, malice, and brutality. Wolves invoked a sense of awe and fear among ancient peoples. If a person were to shapeshift into a wolf, or a man-wolf hybrid, it could make them an excellent hunter and combatant. But the idea of animal strength and savagery crossing with the calculation and emotion of a human being was especially terrifying. To become an animal, namely one as powerful and feared as a wolf, was seen as an exit from civilization and entering a primal state of chaos. Unchecked morality and unbridled cruelty would be strengthened by a wolf's natural power. Their enemies would be torn asunder. The earliest stories of werewolves reflect this deep-rooted fear of regression of civilization into animal savagery. The oldest recorded tale of a person changing into a wolf comes from Mesopotamian mythology, in the Epic of Gilgamesh. Here, instead of a voluntary shift from man to wolf, a woman cursed an ex-lover, transforming him forever into a wolf. In Greek mythology, a corrupt king named Lycaon attempted to trick Zeus into eating the flesh of a slaughtered child. Outraged by this barbarism, Zeus transformed Lycaon and all of his kin into wolves. From the story of Lycaon comes the word lycanthropy, which defines the supernatural power, or psychological condition of belief, to transform into a wolf-like monster. In addition, Lycaon's story contains all the elements of a modern werewolf tale: immoral behavior, murder, and cannibalism. In 425 BCE, Greek historian Herodotus described the Neurians, a nomadic tribe of magical men who changed into wolf form for several days of the year. Roman satirist Petronius wrote of a soldier who witnessed his companion shift into a wolf under the light of a full moon, before running off into the darkness. In Norse mythology, the Volsunga sagas tell of a father and son, Sigmund and Sinfjotli, who used magic pelts to transform themselves into large wolves over the course of 10 days. For the duration of these 10 days, they proceeded to embark on a bloody rampage, killing all in their path, until the father viciously maimed his own son during a disagreement. The story ends with Sinfjotli being healed by a raven, and on the 10th day, the father and son shed their pelts and burned them, ridding themselves of the curse. The cautionary tale of Little Red Riding Hood is often interpreted as a werewolf story, as the wolf who preys on the titular character is cunning and capable of disguising himself as a human in order to devour the young girl. A Blackfoot legend tells of a man who was left for dead by his wives, but rescued by a pack of wolves. The pack's alpha bestowed upon him a wolf-like appearance, and together with the wolves, this wolfman sought revenge against his wives by raiding the settlement and stealing from food storage. From Cajun folklore of Louisiana come tales of the rougarou, or loup-garou, a person who becomes a werewolf after being bewitched or failing to observe Lent for 7 years in a row, and transforms into the murderous beast every night for 101 days, before the curse is passed to another by way of biting or clawing. Many of these stories, as well as the many other stories of werewolves and wolfmen, share common themes: transformation of man to beast, acts of savagery, cruelty, rage, evil, murder, and the consumption of human beings. These stories are seen as fictional today, but in the distant past, stories of werewolves were seen as all too real. Superstitions of werewolves and other creatures and wicked beings would lead to mass hysteria. During the High Middle Ages and into the 16th century, amidst the witch trials and religious persecution of Europe, thousands of people were accused, tried, tortured, and executed for allegedly being werewolves. These so-called werewolf trials lend a historic glimpse at rampant human belief in werewolves. Telltale signs of a werewolf in human form included eyebrows that connected, rough or hairy palms, red hair, or being a societal outcast. Some of the accused were arrested because villagers and peasants needed scapegoats for dead livestock or other societal ills. But others were accused because of actions far more sinister. In the 1500s, Frenchmen Pierre Burgot and Michel Verdun allegedly swore allegiance to the devil and claimed to have an ointment that turned them into wolves. After confessing to brutally murdering several children, they were both burned to death at the stake. Another Frenchman of the same era was Gilles Garnier, dubbed the Werewolf of Dole, who also claimed to transform via an ointment, after which he killed and ate children in the form of a wolf. As with Burgot and Verdun, Garnier was burned at the stake. Whether Burgot, Verdun, or Garnier were mentally ill, acted under the influence of hallucinogens, or were simply cold-blooded killers, is up for debate. But it likely did not matter to superstitions of Europeans at the time, for in their minds, such heinous crimes could only be committed by a horrific beast such as a werewolf. Much of what is common in werewolf mythology today comes from the realm of Hollywood movies, particularly 1941's The Wolfman, starring Lon Chaney Jr. The concept of changing form under the light of the full moon is rooted in folklore, but was cemented thanks to this film. Becoming a werewolf after being bitten by one comes directly from Hollywood, for in folklore, one became a werewolf by other mystical means, and a werewolf simply mauled and devoured its victims. The power of silver weapons, namely silver bullets, being lethal to the monster became a staple of werewolf beliefs. And from the Wolfman comes the chilling poem forever associated with werewolf lore.
Even a man who is pure in heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolfsbane blooms and the autumn moon is bright.
As the horror movie industry progressed, more films about the werewolf came about, such as 1981's An American Werewolf in London, which focused on the psychological aspect of being a werewolf, and The Howling, which explored the raw sexuality of a savage beast. Other films, such as Van Helsing or the Underworld series, put them in antagonistic roles against keen monster hunters, or in opposition against covens of vampires. In recent decades, werewolves have appeared in countless works of fiction, such as books, films, and even comics. As a result, werewolves have become increasingly popular among horror fans. This may be perhaps because, unlike other monsters, the werewolf is only a monster for a short while, and is a normal human being at all other points. Furthermore, unlike ghosts, vampires, or zombies, who still maintain a human-like appearance, the werewolf turns into something much more beastly in appearance, adding an additional sense of intrigue and terror. For as long as recorded stories have existed, stories of werewolves have haunted the nightmares of people around the world. The sheer image of a person painfully shapeshifting into a ravenous wolf and prowling in the shadows of the moonlit night strikes deep within the hearts of millions. From ancient mythology to medieval superstition to Hollywood cinema, the werewolf has cemented itself as among the most terrifying and most enduring monsters of mythology.